Today, I'm going to teach you everything there is to know about gardening. Here's what's on today's video. What is gardening? When can you start? What can you grow? How does it all work? The plant mechanics, the growth times, all that fun stuff. How to maximize profits from gardening, which it is one of the best passive ways to make money currently in Palia. So getting the highest possible yield so you can make the most gold, and what and how to refine your crops to earn even more gold. Let's get into it. So what is gardening? Gardening unlocks once you've built the very first house. You will be able to buy soil from Badru the farmer. I'll show you where he's at. So the soil prices are as follows: 250, 500, 750, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 to 3,000, and you get your first two soils from the quest that you'll get from Badru over here. This is Badru, he's the farmer of Palia, and what you do is you just open his shop, and right here, soil is the very first thing in his inventory. You'll see that you can't purchase any after 3,000, purchase limit reached. This means that you can have a maximum of 9 soils. Now, before I continue, there's an interesting bug sometimes when you zone into your land that your house merges with someone else's. And, yeah, so I just have to record this. It's pretty funny. Now, I wonder if I can destroy their sign here. I wonder if that'll save on their end. Like, it's not letting me destroy it. Okay, never mind. I can't grief their land, you know, natural troll here. But look at their house. Oh, what the hell is this? Oh, it's not supposed to be like this. It's so glitchy. Anyway. Alright, if that happens to you, just zone out and zone back in. It should return back to normal. So this is soil. These are 9 soil plots. You can see here that each square is a 3x3. I can go ahead and just grab one and just move it away. That's 1 soil, and the most optimal pattern is just making a 9x9 grid with your 9 soils. So what can you grow with your garden? Well, currently in the game, there are carrots, onions, cotton, rice, wheat, tomatoes, potatoes, blueberry bushes, and apple trees. The blueberry bushes and apple trees are more of an in-game thing to grow. It'll take a lot of progression to reach them, but for everything else, they are accessible as soon as you have soil. You just go to the store, the general store, and you can buy some seeds and start. So this is where you buy the seeds. The store looks like this. It's like, I don't know what that is. It's got like a little plant thing on the sign. This is where it is on the map. It's called the general store when you mouse over the icon here. I'll zoom out. It's right dead center of Kilma Village, just northwest of the big basketball looking thing. You go into the store, you talk to this cash register, and these are the seeds: carrot seeds, onion seeds, potato seeds, cotton, tomato, wheat, and rice. You can also buy other spices and fertilizers. More on that later. So how does gardening work? There is a lot to talk about in this category, but essentially once you buy the seeds, you just pull some seeds out here. I got like some carrot seeds. You push the button on your hotbar, in this case number 4, which will highlight the seeds. Then you left click. That will allow you to aim where you want to plant the seeds. You have to be very careful at this stage, because if I left click, I will plant these carrot seeds, and there is no uprooting them, there is no deleting this, there is no undo button. Once I plant these carrot seeds, they are in the dirt, and there is no getting rid of them until they fully grow up and you harvest them. So you have to be absolutely careful that you plant them correctly. Let's talk about the growth tick. Every day at 6 a.m. in-game time, you can see it at the top right of your screen, that is when the growth tick happens. So if I plant that carrot seed at 5:50 in the morning, quickly use the watering can to water it. As soon as 6 a.m. clicks over, that counts as 1 day of plant growth. And certain plants take longer than others to grow and harvest. Here are the growth times for every crop. Now, I want to talk about tomatoes, blueberries, and apples, because the way those work is once you plant them, initially their first set of days, so for instance tomatoes takes 4 days, you can then harvest the tomatoes. But the plant remains for another 2 days, you can harvest it again, and then 2 days you can harvest it again, 2 days, and then when you harvest it that time, it disappears. And that's how blueberries and apples work. The blueberry bushes take 9 days, then after 3 days you can harvest them, every 3 days after that for a total of 18 days. Apples last a whopping 30 days, and because one in-game day is 1 hour, you're stuck with those apple trees for 30 hours. And if you log off for the day, it doesn't matter. Here's how crops work whenever you're logged off or if there are weeds. So let's say I plant some tomato seeds in a square. Well, once the day tick happens, it needs to be watered again, unless the fertilizer waters it. More on that later. Or if another plant also helps water it, more on that later as well. And if I don't water the plant, it doesn't grow the next day. Also, if there are weeds on the plant and I don't remove the weeds, it will not grow until the weeds are removed. And there are ways to prevent weeds from happening, but generally, in my opinion, you want weeds because there's several achievements that you need by picking up the weeds, and weeds are just free gold, so it rewards you for actively playing the game and not playing it passively. But back to the topic of the apple trees, that is 30 in-game days of maintaining the tree. Also, if you do not harvest a plant, it will not continue to grow or, yield fruit. So say you have a tomato plant, it's been 4 days, it's ready to harvest. If you don't touch it, it will remain in that state indefinitely until you do harvest it. It won't decay, it won't disappear, it won't go away. It'll just sit there on your farm, giving a bonus. More about bonuses in just a bit. So what about crop yield? Well, every time you harvest a plant, you'll get 2 crops unbuffed, except for blueberries and apples. When you harvest blueberries, you will receive 9 berries, and apples, you'll receive 24. Because you can harvest blueberries and apples 4 times before they disappear, that means one apple tree will yield 96 apples or 36 blueberries. Now, every plant that you use has a buff to adjacent plants. So carrots and onions prevent weeds, rice and wheat increases your yield by 1. So instead of receiving 2 tomatoes, for instance, if the tomatoes are planted near rice or wheat, instead, each time that they are harvestable, they will give you 3 tomatoes. More on this later. Cotton increases quality, so in this game there are normal quality items, and then there's like a little golden star, meaning that it's a quality item. Quality items are just generally better, they sell for more, when they're refined, they turn into better items, and so on. Potatoes and tomatoes will retain water. What that means is that after 1 hour at 6 in the morning, instead of everything being dry, and you have to come back with a watering can, they will water themselves as long as weeds aren't preventing the growth, and as long as they're touching. More on that later. So blueberries and apples are faster growth rate, which it's actually a % chance to be a faster growth rate, which can really mess up your garden and make things, some of them grow faster than others. It's a real pain in the butt currently. Hopefully it gets reworked, but this one is actually kind of bad and super annoying, like I said, because it's just a % chance. And what that will do is it will save you 1 full day of waiting for a crop to grow, so it can be good when it procs, but when it doesn't, your garden becomes an uneven mess, and the upkeep just gets worse. Now also, the same crop cannot buff the same crop. So if I have like just tomatoes planted everywhere, the tomatoes will not allow you to retain water. The only way for tomatoes to retain water are to be planted next to potatoes. We'll call this partner plants in the future. So when you have your partner plants planted next to each other, they will buff each other, but the same plant cannot buff the same plant. So you can't just have a garden full of potatoes that will water themselves, unfortunately. Now we're going to open MS Paint here, and I'm going to show you how this works. So we're going to use the color red, and I'm sorry for anyone that's colorblind. Let's say we have tomatoes planted in this pattern, and then let's use brown as potatoes. So the way buffs work are in a kind of up, down, and left, right direction, not diagonally. Plants will never buff each other diagonally. So let me just draw a little black line here. This potato plant cannot buff this square, unfortunately, but the potato plant can buff the top square, the left, the right, and the bottom squares. Whereas also the tomatoes are buffing, the squares to the left, to the right. In this case, there's nothing above it, but it can buff the potato plant here. So what you want to do to maximize efficiency for this kind of thing is you would want to plant potatoes kind of like this in your garden, and then your tomatoes would look something like this, so that they are all being buffed Actually, hold on, I messed up there. Okay, there we go. So that's one way to do it. Though this can get kind of annoying because, as you can see once we complete the pattern, that there's these little 2x2 squares here, and then there's these like 1x2s, and then kind of the stuff in the corner that won't get buffed at all. So that's kind of annoying, because what you have to do after that is you would have to put, like, say, a potato there, and then you would put 2 tomatoes there, and then you're just kind of left with this one not really doing much. It's, again, like, it's kind of wasted space. But you can mess around with it, and you can find a pattern that works for you. So here's an easier to maintain pattern if you want partnered plants to work well with each other. We'll just put a line of potatoes, and then we just put a line of tomatoes on each side. And then you would just repeat this pattern on all of your other plots. So the way this works is all the tomatoes are being watered and all the potatoes are being watered, and then you just alternate. So the next line would be, again, you don't want to do it like that. I mean, you could, but you don't have to. You could still do it like this, and so everything's still being watered that way. It's up to you however you want to do it. Furthermore, blueberries take up... Hold on, my paint bucket's not working. Blueberries take up a 2x2 space, like this. That's one blueberry bush, and then another blueberry bush over here. Apple trees, we're going to use, I guess, a darker red for apple trees. They take up a 3x3 space, just like this. And the way it works is to, let's say you wanted to keep this apple tree watered. You need at least 3 potato plants or 3 tomato plants touching it for it to be watered. For blueberry bushes, you would only need 2 touching it. And they could be touching on any side. You could have like one here. Like if you put 2 potatoes right here, it's going to water both of these blueberry bushes. They're not like, they can share, so to speak. So you can put one here, you can put one here, and then this will be water retained. And the same goes for the, sorry, I can't talk. The same goes for the apple tree. You can put like 2 there, 1 here, and then this will have water retention. And of course, the 1x1 plants here, like these potatoes, will share the buff of growing faster from the apple tree. I keep forgetting what the word apple is. Sometimes I forget words. So you're probably wondering, what are these pink petals on the dirt? What are those? That is fertilizer. I'm going to talk more about that in just a bit, but first, let's talk about seed and quality seeds. So first, let's talk about seed and seed quality. So here we have a bag of rice seed. These are normal quality. Their value is 11 each. And then this is a bag of quality rice seed. Their value is 16. So here's how quality seeds work. The way it works is if you plant a regular seed, you will get a regular produce. If you plant a quality seed, you will grow quality produce at a chance % based on your gardening level. At gardening level 25, you have a 100% chance for a quality seed to become a quality item. Even at low levels, it's still a high chance. So at level 1, you have a 75% chance from quality seeds to receive quality produce, or a 1 in 4 chance. And gardening levels super quickly, especially when you have all 9 of these plots here. So basically, by having quality seeds, you're going to get quality produce. So let's talk now about fertilizer, which is another way to buff your plants. I'll post them all up on the screen here. So one of the first ones you'll normally get is the Quality Up Fertilizer. This is just from putting most food into a worm farm, which you will unlock through fishing. Harvest Yield is from worm farms if you use blueberry or apple or sweet leaf products. However, this is a huge waste of potential because you can also get Harvest Yield fertilizer from glowworm farms using regular food. This is actually one of the better ways to make money in the game. That's a whole separate video, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. It's coming soon, boys and girls. So next up is Speedy Grow Fertilizer. That one is also from the glowworm farms, but you have to use blueberry, apple, or sweet leaf products to get it. It's pretty hard to get. Next up is Weed Block, which, as the name implies, it blocks weeds. You can buy this from Zeki's General Store, 20 of them at a time for 40 gold. Pretty cheap when you reach the end game. And Hydrate Pro, again, from the General Store, 20 for 40 gold. So what does each one do? Quality up increases your produce's quality, which if you're at low gardening levels, you can combine it with a quality seed to always get quality produce. For the most part, when I tested this, I still sometimes maybe like got 2 or 3 regular pieces of produce instead of 100%, but it does boost it a little bit. I don't know exactly how much. Also, harvest yield is 1 additional produce. This does not stack. I have tried it, by using partner plants and harvest yield. It does not stack. As a matter of fact, none of these really stack except quality up. Quality up only stacks because it's based on the seed. If you use cotton and quality up, it does not stack. Speedy grow does not stack with apples or blueberries, unfortunately, from their buff. So there's really no reason to use that. And then weed block and hydrate pro. If you have weed block already up, there's no reason to have more. And then hydrate pro is if you're just like, say you plant a bunch of stuff and you don't want to tend to it, so you just go to bed. Here's the problems with a lot of these. I'm going to talk about kind of the meta now. Quality up becomes completely worthless once you have higher gardening levels and quality seeds. There's no reason to ever use it. Harvest yield is the best one on here to use. You should always use harvest yield so that you get bonus yield from your produce, but this also means because you're using harvest yield fertilizer, there is no reason to use harvest yield plants at all. There's just no reason. Speedy grow, again, is just a % chance to skip a day of growth cycle. And this can make your garden very uneven. It's also the hardest fertilizer to get, very expensive to make. It is not worth ever using because of those 2 reasons. Weed block can be useful if you don't want to tend to your garden for several hours, in real life time. But the way I see it is when 6 a.m. rolls around, just teleport home, unweed your garden, water whatever needs to be watered, and you're good to go. Hydrate Pro, again, it's if you're like going to log out for several hours or you don't want to tend to your garden. I don't really think that these are worth the cost in gold. But if you're really lazy and you don't want to tend your garden, it is an option, though I recommend harvest yield all the way. Because it's not only is it super easy to get, it is just better overall for money making. So how does fertilizing work exactly? When you hold the G button, you can see how much fertilizer is stacked into one square. You can stack up to 99 fertilizers per square. If you have a blueberry bush or an apple tree, it will count them as one big square, so it will take 9 fertilizer to fertilize an apple tree once, or 4 fertilizers to fertilize a berry bush once. You can see here, this square has 11 water retain, this one has 1, and 22, and 24. Well, let's say I don't want water retain anymore. Well, in my inventory, you can see here, I have this green poop, and it is a harvest boost fertilizer, that's what we want. And so what happens is, if I put this harvest boost over this water retain of 24, I get 24 Hydrate Pro fertilizers back in my inventory. And then if I put the Hydrate Pro back on top of this Harvest Boost, well, I get the Harvest Boost back. And the way fertilizer is supposed to work is that every day it will eat 1 of your fertilizers. So let's say I have a plant here on this Water Retain 24. 1 day passes by. It will then become Water Retain 23. However, I've noticed some glitches and some bugs. Sometimes, I don't know if it's because of weeds or something else, or just the tick rate gets screwed up, but sometimes it'll like eat half of the fertilizers, and it'll go from 24 to 12 in 1 day. I don't really quite understand why or how that's happening, but if I put 99 fertilizers on every square and plant and water everything exactly evenly, the numbers start jumping all over the place. Like one of these squares will have 70, one will have 60, one will have 98. It's so weird and random. I think it's a bug. I don't really know what is causing that. But the game mechanics, the way it's supposed to work, is that it eats 1 of these a day. So because, say, tomatoes take 10 hours for their entire cycle, you would want at least 10 fertilizers or more on top of your tomatoes so that they are always yielding. And you may be also wondering, should I just plant fertilizer the day before the yield happens? And you can, but that's a lot of micromanagement. The way I see it is I'm lazy. I don't want to count how many days until my tomatoes bloom. And so I just throw the fertilizer down all the time. Currently, I've been messing around with a lot of things, so this land isn't really fertilized because I was, again, messing around and gathering all of this data. but essentially, you want every square fertilized as much as possible all of the time, and preferably, you want it with, like I said, Harvest Boost. That is your best one to use. Early game, quality up is good until you have a whole bunch of quality seeds. Like you can see right here, I have, like, almost all of my seeds are quality. Like, I have 82 tomato plant seeds here of quality, so I don't need quality up fertilizer anymore because I can infinitely sustain my tomatoes forever with quality. It's now time for your favorite part of the video, how to maximize profits. How do you use these soils, and what do you plant in them? What's the best pattern to use? What's the best fertilizer? How do we put it all together, everything we've learned, to make as much money as possible? And that's what you're here for. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about patterns. When you first start out, you're not going to have any fertilizer, you're not going to have any quality seeds, and you're going to be wondering, well, how should I plant my crops? And let's just run some numbers. Now, instead of me making every single square red, we're just going to color the outside of it, and that's going to be every plant is a tomato, right? And so, because we have 81 squares, and we're going to get 2 tomatoes per square, that means per harvest, we're going to earn 162 tomatoes. And you may be thinking, hey, that's pretty good, but you can make it better. So now we have the pattern where this yellow square represents rice, and rice is a yield increase. I almost said quantity. Yield increase. So what that means is every tomato that touches the rice will receive 3 instead of 2. But what about all these empty squares? Well, let's do some basic math here. If we put a rice square... No, that's not yellow. If we put a rice square there, and then 2 tomatoes here, these tomatoes that normally yield 2 will now yield 3 each. So we get 3 and 6, which is the exact same thing of just doing that, right? No, it's not. Because you're getting 6 tomatoes, but you're also getting 2 rice. So this is better. As long as, here's the simple math. As long as your rice square can buff at least 2 tomato squares, you should always do it. That means in these little 2x2s that are here on the map, we should always put down a rice just in each corner, and then we could fill that with tomatoes, and there we go, just like that. So you may be wondering, well, what about these squares? Well, they're tomatoes because there's no reason to put rice there. They're not buffing anything. And what about these squares in the corner? Just put tomatoes. There we go. What about these 1x2s? Well, here's the thing. If I put a rice down and a tomato down, this is 3 tomato, 2 rice for a total of 5, right? But we want more tomatoes than rice because rice isn't really the best. So this yields 5 total crops, whereas this would only yield 4. So it's up to you if you want more rice or more tomatoes. In my case, tomatoes are one of the best money makers for mid and somewhat late game, but actually rice in the end game, when you combine it with fishing, is the better option. But rice cannot buff itself, so rice should always be paired with a tomato. So my recommendation is this. That is what I recommend, that's what I do, and there we go. So we're going to go ahead and fill it up just like this. And I know this pattern looks a little silly and a little crazy, a little chaotic, and we can just kind of do that, make it a little bit quicker. And this is the mid-game optimal farm layout that you should do. And it's very simple to do. You can do it yourself, and this will give you an optimal yield of not only tomatoes, but also rice, increasing your profits. And like I said, rice is super important for money making way later. That's a whole separate video I'm going to make, though, on that subject. I won't cover that today. Now, this pattern will yield 173 tomatoes, 42 rice, for a total of 215 crops. There is a minor annoyance with this, though, is that the tomatoes will continue to grow, and unless you replant the rice every single time, you have to leave the rice up until the tomatoes are completely done with their 10-day harvest cycle. So that's an option for you. And again, this is without fertilizer because early on you won't have fertilizer unless you really rush worm boxes and do your due diligence. Also for tomatoes, I'm not counting the additional days that you get to harvest the tomatoes. I am only counting the first harvest cycle. You can do the math yourself. It's ×4. Now, because this is an early game pattern, I recommend the only fertilizer that's really free and available to you, which would be quality up. You want to make sure that you have enough quality tomato seeds And the quality rice seeds don't really matter. It can get annoying when cooking, but that's, again, separate video for that. But once you have a nice stockpile of quality tomato seeds and you're continuously getting quality tomatoes, then you can move on to the mid-game. Hopefully you have unlocked glowworm boxes for the next fertilizer. Once you reach the mid-game, it's pretty simple. You just do all tomatoes. You don't need any kind of other crops to meddle with your tomatoes because you're going to have quality seeds, so the tomatoes will become quality tomatoes. And then you have the harvest yield fertilizer from glowworm boxes, which will give you the buff of harvest yield, meaning that you get 242 quality tomatoes times 4. So let me show you what the money looks like and how to do this. So here is a quality tomato. A quality tomato is worth 34 gold each. And you're getting 1,000 every 10 hours of real life time, right? But when you turn the tomato, the quality tomato, into a quality seed, check out the value. It becomes 60. So, and this does take more time. The way you do this is as you do more gardening, you're going to unlock these machines. Where are they at? The machines are called seed collectors. So you put down these seed collectors, and then what you do is for every 2 tomatoes, you will receive 2 tomato seeds. So that means you take these 2 tomatoes, put them in the machine, and then in 42 minutes, they will become, because they're quality tomatoes, they will most likely become quality tomato seeds. Not always, it's a very low % chance. But even if they don't, you still profit. Because the regular tomatoes or the quality tomatoes were worth 34, well, regular seeds are worth 40, so you still bank. You still benefit. But these 2 tomato seeds will become quality tomato seeds, and I just turned 60-something gold into 120 gold. It's that simple, and what you end up doing is you will just have rows and rows and rows of these seed machines just pumping like crazy, and the way it works, once you've got the fertilizer, even if you have like 9 or 10 or even like 15 of these seed machines, it's very hard to keep up with how many tomatoes are growing. You're going to have more tomatoes than you'll know what to do with before long, and you'll never have to buy seeds because, well, you just take 81 of the seeds spit out of these hoppers, put them back down, and you're just making money hand over fist. You are able to buy everything in the game. I mean, it took me a week, and I've got all the backpacks. I've got the 125,000 gold storage chests. It's completely done. The only thing left to spend money on is housing slots, which is up to 75,000. And more buildings just to build. Like, I'm just building chimneys because I just have so much money to burn. I'm able to buy everything and anything in the game multiple times over. I can go to the black market and buy the expensive furnitures, the 60,000, gold arcade machine when that pops up if you want. I can literally buy anything in the game, and all I have to do is plant tomatoes and some fertilizer and just water them every hour. But Swole Benji, I'm lazy. I don't want to have to water the plants every hour. Also, I'm having problems keeping up with my focus. Food is too expensive and takes too long to make. I don't want to go hunting, blah, blah, blah. I want to make money, and I don't ever want to starve, and I don't want to have to water the plants, and I don't want to have to de-weed them. What do I do? How do I do this? What is the laziest way to make money and stay fed? I've got your answer, bro. It's really, really simple. Let me show you. The pattern is the one that I showed you earlier, and what we're going to do is we're just going to tomato up the, the sides here, just like that. And do it again here. And you already know what's happening, so let me explain how this works. This is the lazy man's farm, and this only works with these 2 items. And we're going to take potatoes. We're going to use the color brown. Again, I apologize for anyone that's fully colorblind here. But the middle line is brown, and the outer lines are red for tomatoes. And what this pattern will do, this keeps everything automatically watered. Everything will be auto-watered the entire time. And then all you have to do is use the weed away, I forget what it's called, fertilizer, on every plot. So what this does is everything will retain the water 100% of the time because the plants are buffing each other. And then the weed away fertilizer, weed be gone, whatever it's called, you buy this from the shop, and then they will never ever sprout weeds. and so they will never have their growth stunted while you're away. So what you do is you plant this configuration, you come back in 4 hours, you harvest the tomatoes, you come back in 1 hour, you harvest and replant the potatoes, and then you come back in another hour, you harvest the tomatoes, and then you come back in 2 more hours and you harvest the tomatoes, and then you come back in 1 hour harvest. It's like 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour. So it allows you to not have to mess with watering and damaging your watering can. You don't have to fill up your water. You can go out and do other things. And even if you don't want to come back every 1 to 2 hours, you can just come back every 5 hours. Every 5 hours, your tomatoes will always be, ready to harvest, and your potatoes will always be ready to harvest. So if you just want to touch this game twice or 3 times in one day, you just want to log in for like 2 minutes, yoink everything out of the ground, and then replant it, that's all you have to do. And besides that, the way to get food, one of the best food sources in the game, in my opinion, you use these preserve jars, right? You place down a preserve jar, and you can put you can put most produce in it. You can't put in wheat or rice, which would be weird to pickle, in my opinion. But pickled potatoes are so good. Look at this. These are just regular pickled potatoes at 270 focus each. That's more than a meaty stir fry. The meaty stir fry, when you cook that, it's a pain in the ass to cook. You only get 3 at a time, and it only gives you like 250 focus. This gives you 270 focus, and it only costs 1 potato. You put 1 potato in there, it takes an hour, and you get a pickled potato. And what you do is you just take all of your potatoes. They'll be quality because you'll be using quality seeds, which I didn't do here. But when you have quality pickled potato, these things are like 335 or 350, 375. I forget how much focus they are, but they are over 300 something focus each. These things are amazing to eat. Look at this. Like chapa masala is an in-game cooking item. This gives 550 focus. Well, I could just eat 2 pickled potatoes and get more. Well, not exactly more, but close enough. 2 pickled potatoes is just 2 potatoes in 2 hours. It's so much easier than cooking these chapa masalas. It's insanely easy. And also, pickled potatoes are worth 68 each, so if you wanted to sell them, you could. But I recommend keeping them around to eat. That's just my opinion. And so, basically, your land will be filled with these seed machines and these preserves. And that's the laziest way to make money and stay fed. And the reason you'd want to stay fed is so that your focus is always high, so that you can level up your skills super duper quickly. You should never play the game without focus, not even a tiny bit. Finally, about the fertilizer, you'll have so many bonus potatoes and tomatoes, no matter which way you want to do it. Let me get rid of the text here. That you'll just throw your bonus tomatoes in these glowworm farm hoppers. They're going to spit out glowworms for fishing, but they're also going to give you these harvest boost fertilizers, which you throw back into the dirt over here, and you grow more tomatoes, more potatoes, rice, whatever you want to do, and you will just be profiting hand over fist every single day. It's the cycle of life. You grow the tomatoes, they become seeds, they go back in the dirt, the rest of the seeds get thrown into this little box over here. You're going to be pushing 50 to 70,000 gold per day just from tomato seeds, not from anything else, just tomato seeds. It's nuts, it's crazy. And also, if you do the potato method, which I showed you, you'll never go hungry again. You don't have to slave away at the kitchen cooking meaty stir fries or chapa masalas. You can just eat the pickled potatoes, om nom nom, and then continue doing whatever it is you want to do in this game. Easy peasy. You'll never go hungry, and you'll never grow broke if you pick up gardening. This is why I tell every new player the very first thing you should spend your money on is buying 9 of these soil plots as soon as possible, because they will pay dividends in the future. I know a lot of cozy gamers out there, a lot of these cozy YouTuber girls, they're like, I want to decorate the house and have a pretty bathroom and nice carpets and cool houses. And I'm like, bro, do that later. Get the soil, get to farming, get to growing. You can worry about the house later when you have a bunch of money, okay? And because, I don't know about you, but this game is way more fun when you have a lot more storage bags. when you have all of the storage chests. Look at this, 10,000 storage. I'm using 9,000 of it, and you know, I've only been playing like 2 weeks at this point. You want to prioritize soil as much as possible. If you have a friend that plays and they have like a piss poor shit garden, they don't have all 9 plots, get on to them. Show them this video. You know, share it with your friends. That's how I survive as a YouTuber, by the way. But with that said, thank you so much for watching my video. Please leave a like. It really helps, you know, spread, you know, the video to more people. And also, I'm so close to 100,000 subscribers. You guys have been really awesome with hitting that subscriber button. So please, 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 just get me to 100 subs and maybe I'll stop asking. Alright, just please hit the subscribe button. You can always unsubscribe later, you know, for whatever reason. Just get me that damn YouTube plaque. I want to hang it up on my empty wall. You know, in real life, my apartment, it looks like this. It's just nothing. There's just nothing here. I got like a bed and a toilet and a computer desk. That's it. It's just completely empty. There's nothing on the walls. Let me get that YouTube plaque, please. With that said, also, I have no friends and no social life, and I spend all day refreshing my YouTube comments page. So feel free to leave any comment with any questions, and I'll answer it. I'll interact with you. You're my only social life, so please leave a comment. It reminds me that I'm still alive. Finally, on the right side of your screen, right over there, there's a video that you should absolutely click. And if you don't click it, then you're gonna be late for work, or your alarm is not gonna go off on time, and you're gonna be late for something. This is a curse. You have to click the video to break the curse. That's how this works.